videos. Okay, wonderful. So we have the presentation up. So again, thank you for joining today's webinar. Next slide, please. So this webinar is going to last about an hour and a half, and it aims to build your understanding of the project. So we will be talking about the project background, the capacity development focus, and also related framework of the training delivery. It aims to share and discuss the results of the pre-workshop survey that hopefully all of you have contributed to. And we will also be answering any questions that and queries that you might have. And we will also be presenting the process of the project implementation and work plan to enable you to also plan your time for this project. Next slide, please. I would like to highlight our project partners that are playing a very important role in this project. So first is STDF, or Standards and Trade Development Facility, which is a global partnership that helps developing countries improve their food safety and animal and plant health capacity to meet SPS requirements. Next one, please. We have the IR4 project of Rutgers University. So this is a project that is aiming to develop a global network of research cooperators to generate quality residue data for submission to IMPR and development of new codex MRLs and different strategies for dealing with harmonization issues to reduce trade barriers. And this project is actually going to be leading, our Rutgers University is going to be leading this project. Next slide, please. So another partner is the United States Department of Agriculture, Foreign Agriculture Service that provides technical assistance to foreign partners to promote and facilitate the trade of agriculture. And over the past few years, it's been focusing on pesticides and MRLs as a top trade issue. Next one, please. Okay, so this is APARI. So APARI, where I am from, that I represent, is the Asia Pacific Association of Agriculture Research Institutions. It's a regional organization that is aiming to strengthen research and innovations for sustainable agriculture development in the region. We have over 85 members, and APARI acts as an intermediary that is, and also an innovation platform that is bridging diverse stakeholders and knowledge to promote innovation, to facilitate capacity development. Next one, please. Okay, sorry, I skipped USDA. Okay, so USDA I have already introduced, actually, even though the slide was not shown. Sorry about that. Next, please. Okay, and our speakers today. So the first speaker will be Ms. Catalina Toledo, who is the Economic Affairs Officer in STDF WTO. Then we have Michael Braverman, who is the Manager Biopesticide, Organic and International Capacity Building Programs for IR4 project at Rutgers University. We will have Dr. Ravi Ketapal, the Executive Secretary of APARI, and myself, that I also represent APARI. And our technical coordination will be done by Ms. Sally Lubitong, our Knowledge Management Officer from APARI Bangkok. Next one, please. And as the first speaker, I would like to introduce Ms. Catalina Toledo, who joins us from Geneva. Catalina, the floor is yours. Can you please deliver your welcoming statement?
Unmute.
Who's on the call finally from the country?
Catalina, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, sorry.
Hi. The floor is yours.
Just give me.
Give me just 1 second. Yeah, thank you very much. I was just wondering if maybe you can give just an overview of who's on the call, from which countries, just very quick.
Okay, so yeah, we have participants from Thailand, from Vietnam, from Indonesia, Laos, Bangladesh, Singapore, and also some international participants. So from FAO, representing FAO, GIZ,
Cambodia, Malaysia,
countries like Cambodia,
Malaysia.
Yeah, Malaysia, exactly. Indonesia, I mentioned already, and Vietnam, Nepal also.
Nepal.
Yeah, I'm just going through the chat box because the people have, the participants have introduced themselves there. Yeah, so we have quite a wide representation. So about 25 participants who joined us, representing these countries and internationally. Yeah. So hopefully we will know more about them as they start posting comments and ask questions.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. Just to give to have a sense of the people connected. Okay, so thank you. I thank you very much for the opportunity to deliver these welcoming remarks on behalf of the Standards and Trade Development Facility, the STDF. The STDF is financed by bilateral donors and is a global partnership founded by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the World Organization for Animal Health, the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, and the World Bank Group. Codex and the International Plant Protection Convention also actively contribute to our work. The STDF works with diverse other partners involved in agriculture, health, trade, and development, including other international and regional organizations, developing country experts, and the private sector. APARI and IR4 are part of STDF's network. They are appreciated by the STDF thanks to their experience and for being focused on results. In fact, and as you may know, Ravi was in the past one of our developing country experts, and we benefited greatly from his expertise. Trade in food and agricultural products offers a way for farmers, processors, and traders in developing countries to increase their incomes and to boost economic development. But despite the potential, and as you all know, there are many challenges. Limited capacity to meet food safety, animal and plant health requirements is often one of the major obstacles. The STDF aims to help developing countries to strengthen their sanitary and phytosanitary SPS capacities. For this, the STDF provides grants for the preparation as well as for the implementation of technical assistance projects. The aim is to encourage compliance with international standards in the SPS area so that developing countries such as yours can gain and maintain access to international markets. Last month, we launched the new STDF strategy 2020-2024. It builds on STDF's track record but goes beyond by elaborating on how the STDF aims to deliver results and influence change based on its unique value proposition of convene and connect, pilot and innovate, learn and disseminate, influence and catalyze. We have seen that more synergies and collaboration and greater access to and use of good practices and knowledge products at a global, regional, and national level drive catalytic improvements in SPS capacity in developing and least developed countries and ultimately facilitate safe trade. Many developing countries face challenges to meet pesticide maximum residual limits, MRLs. In fact, MRLs and pesticide-related issues count high among trade concerns raised in the SPS committee at the WTO. In the past, the STDF found regional projects focused on building capacity to meet Codex MRLs for minor use crops, including one project in ASEAN, implemented with support of IR4, which achieved very good results. In Asia, some countries have identified access to newer, low-toxicity biopesticides as a priority and have started to regulate and develop frameworks for those. Of course, much more still needs to be done in order to identify and tool out new solutions in order to address pesticide-related issues affecting trade. This regional project, starting today, engages public and private sector stakeholders in Asia to test a new approach that combines non-residue producing biopesticides with conventional pesticides to reduce trade issues linked to non-compliance with MRLs. Least developed countries, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Nepal, as well as other developing countries, Sri Lanka and Indonesia, will participate and benefit working in partnership with more advanced countries, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, to be involved as mentors and trainers, promoting South-South cooperation, regional networks, and learning. This fits nicely with the principles of convening, piloting, learning, and influencing in our new STDF strategy. We are happy to see that this project is aligned to national and regional priorities, as well as other global and regional efforts on the regulation and use of biopesticides, including work by Chile on biopesticide regulatory harmonization through the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residues, as well as work in the OECD. In addition, and as you may know, this project was developed through a PPG approved in October 2018, implemented by APARI. IF4 at Rogers University and USDA provided technical guidance during this PPG work, and consultations took place with relevant international partners such as FAO and GIZ. Many of the government officials present today were actively involved in this first Emerald Asian project, then in the project preparation grant, and now in this new project. Building on existing work is core to the STDF's principles. The importance of increased capacity on pesticide MRLs, as well as the need for additional work to address the challenges faced, was highlighted in a recent external evaluation of the finalized 3 regional STDF projects on emeralds for minor use crops. Therefore, this regional project being launched today is very important for the STDF for at least 4 main reasons. First, it will test an alternative approach to improve compliance with pesticide MRLs, which is an ongoing trade challenge. It would also be based on close collaboration between government authorities in the participant countries and the private sector, and it's expected to facilitate additional public-private partnerships. It encourages cooperation, dialogue, and exchange within and across the ASEAN and South Asian regions. And finally, the results are likely to generate broader experiences and lessons of wider relevance and interests. Biopesticides are in fact growing interest to regulatory agencies, and work is advancing on this topic regionally and globally, such as ASEAN, Codex, and the OECD. This regional project was approved by the STDF Working Group in October last year, and we are already now seeing implementation. It has been one of the fastest projects going from project approval to contracting. This reflects the determination, hard work, and motivation of the implementing partners, as well as the contributions made by the experts from the participating countries. The STDF will contribute with almost $900,000 for its implementation. We are well aware that in a project like this, involving so many stakeholders, there is a particular need to ensure that activities across different countries and involving diverse partners are effectively planned, implemented, and monitored. Implementation by a regional organization, in this case APARI, with project management expertise in collaboration with technical partners will certainly help address this challenge. However, but most importantly, it will be your enthusiasm, motivation, and the commitment of each of you at the personal level that will ensure a successful implementation of the project. The project's steering committee will be, in fact, a very useful platform to exchange and to timely discuss progress and areas for improvement if needed. From the STDF, I would like to thank everyone taking part of this first kickoff event from the public and the private sectors. Also, a special thanks to IR4 and PARI for organizing it and being in charge of implementation. The STDF is delighted to be able to contribute to this project, and we encourage you to work in a concerted manner in order to achieve the expected results. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Catalina. Thank you very much. I think just a participant joined, a new one. So may I please remind everybody to keep their audios off. Okay, so thank you again, Catalina, for this introduction of STDF and of the key issues as well as the project. And for your information, Catalina is responsible for the design and management of projects and project preparation grants across food safety, animal and plant health in STDF. And sorry, please mute your audios. The persons who just joined, please. Thank you. And before joining STDF last year, Catalina worked with the Swiss Economic Cooperation in Colombia, as well as WTO, UN, and Government of Colombia. So, Catalina, we are looking forward to work with you on this project, and thank you for delivering this welcoming statement.
Thank you all.
Now, before going to the next session, I would like to introduce today's agenda. So, next slide, please. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, we will be talking, in the next session, we will be talking about the project, its background, its objectives, timelines, as well as the preparation for the inception meeting planned for June. We will be talking about the capacity development focus of this project and also the framework that it will follow. We will have a lot of, actually, we will encourage you to ask questions and post any comments that you might have in the chat box. We will be talking about the results of the pre-workshop survey, also about the felt need for other project-related skills, but also I understand Michael sent you some questions or points for discussion in his email in the previous days. So we will be discussing some of that as well. And finally, we will be talking about the way forward. So what is the plan? The plan for the project and how we are planning to proceed. Next slide, please. Okay. So sorry again, one slide has been missed. That's okay. I would just like to ask you to keep your microphones off during the whole webinar. Okay, please keep your microphones off because there's going to be a huge disruption otherwise. So only the speakers will keep the microphones on. Also, please turn off your cameras. And during the presentations, you can feel free to post any comments or questions that come to your mind in using the chat box. And when you are addressing a specific comment or question to a speaker, you can mention his or her name. Okay, so that we know who the question is for. And yeah, and that's it. So you just need to be reminded of all these housekeeping rules, and then hopefully we will have a smooth webinar. So for the next session on the project background, I would like to ask Michael Braverman, who is the manager of Biopesticide Organic and International Capacity Building Programs for IR4 project, to make a presentation. And just very briefly about Michael. He is a former faculty member of Louisiana State University, where he conducted his rice research, and also extension vegetable specialist of Texas A&M University. As a Fulbright scholar to Thailand in the past, he conducted research as part of the opium substituted crop project, and he has been with the IR4 project for about 20 years. So now he currently manages research programs on pesticide residues and prepares scientific dossiers for review by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So he's very experienced in research projects throughout Asia and Africa, which have been resulting in establishing new pesticide codex, MRLs, to facilitate global harmonization trades. So Michael, you may please give us the project background. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Can we have the next slide? Perfect. So first of all, thank you to everybody for your patience and the challenges that we have faced with coronavirus. And we certainly look forward to having our Inception workshop in June. And in addition, we did want to have at least something in the interim, and we hope that this process of the webinar helps to bridge the process and help to keep the momentum going forward. So within this project, the overall objective is to increase the awareness of how pesticide residue issues impact trade and develop methods for overcoming these trade barriers. The three primary areas of focus include residue mitigation, microbial biopesticide manufacturing, and regulatory cooperation. Next slide, please. As Catalina mentioned, the focus is on trade compliance with existing standards. And in this case, we're dealing with the standards of MRLs, or pesticides. So here is a symbolic degradation curve of a pesticide decreasing in concentration over time. I don't know if you can see the arrow here, but on this axis we have the concentration in parts per million, and this axis we have the time in days. And PHI stands for pre-harvest interval. So as you would expect, as you increase in time, you tend to decrease the concentration. So really, it's a matter of how long do you have to wait until the concentration will decrease below a level in which you can meet an existing MRL. So in this case, we're dealing with a hypothetical of a 7-day PHI and a 7 days of effective control. So let's say you're harvesting here at 7 days after last treatment, and you're dealing with a residue of about 0.6 ppm. Well, if the Codex MRL is 0.5, obviously you're above that, right? And if the EU has, for example, maybe they have an MRL of 0.3 part per million, in other words, you would have to wait longer until you were able to harvest to be able to meet that MRL. Simultaneously, what is happening over time, you're losing the effectiveness of whatever treatment was applied. And so you're leaving a gap of an unprotected crop. And this is when we are trying to come in with a biopesticide to help simply maintain the existing pest management that is being initiated through the conventional product through the season. So we're not trying to overcome an issue at the end of the crop in the sense of a severe pest management issue. We're simply trying to maintain an existing level of pest management. Next slide, please. Actually, you can just skip through these until you get to the totally next slide. Perfect. So this diagram explains the flow of the process. So right now, we're all that guy at the little desk there, shuffling papers and trying to get organized. So after we are organized and go through a number of different training programs, we will conduct a field phase of a residue program. Samples will be generated and analyzed, and from that, we're going to have the initial data regarding the relationship between concentration and time. After we understand that relationship and where we need to target our time to meet existing MRLs, we're going to follow that up with biopesticide efficacy studies to see how that fits within the system. After we get a successful working system, then the goal is to have an extension type activity, educate growers, and extend spread the information on this project through farmer education and submission of the results of these studies to SDDF. Next slide, please. So a number of things might happen during this study. We might end up determining a very rapid decline. A rapid decline means that even though they are encountering some residue problems, we're dealing not with a mitigation issue, but a farmer education issue. In other words, there's some issue either in application rate, or there's an issue in farmers not following the PHI. There's an intermediate type decline. There's a good chance we have an opportunity to mitigate those residues in this system. If it's a very long decline, we may have to restrict that particular active ingredient to early season use and develop a multi-stage mitigation approach. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we also seek input on industry. If those in the pesticide industry that are on this call or part of this communications effort have any existing data on residue decline in these crops, that will help us greatly in selecting the sample intervals. In addition, I want to recognize and express my appreciation for their willingness to supply analytical standards and test substances that we will be using in the field. Next slide, please. So in theory, for a given crop pest combination, what we want to do is to be able to explain the risk. So here in this sense, red means danger. In other words, in the boxes where you see danger at the given time levels across the top, it would be a very high risk harvest within 3 days, no matter what country you were trying to export to. But if your main exports, for example, were Australia, you might be Australia, Japan, US, or some other country, you might be okay at 21 days. However, in some other markets, you may have to wait longer. So we want to develop an analysis of the risk and explain the risk so that this kind of information can be provided to farmers to mitigate the chance of produce ending up in another country and causing an issue with the exports. Okay, next slide, please. So in order to conduct all this work, we're going to need people in certain roles, at least from the standpoint of the people involved in the research phase. I'd like to request the name, organization, and emails of people that will be the facility management, study director, field research director, lab research director, quality assurance in either both the field and lab, or some countries may have a separate QA for field and lab. And then finally, somebody who is either an entomologist or plant pathologist to be able to conduct the efficacy evaluations. Get somebody to mute their audio. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So we had a previous meeting in Singapore where we discussed a lot of different possibilities. Actually, we had a list of over 200 possibilities of crop pesticide issues that were causing trade irritants. But out of those, we settled on some that had overlapping interests from many different countries and things that seemed to fit both important crops and pesticides that have come up as repeated issues. I'm not going to go through each and every active ingredient, but here are just some tables, and on these tables, it describes where the countries are that are going to be involved in this particular combination here on chili pepper, what the target pests are, the target chemical pesticides that we're going to be investigating as far as residues, and then some potential biopesticides that are going to be evaluated at the end of the season so that we can try to mitigate some of these residues. Next slide, please. So another crop we're going to be dealing with is greens. Greens are going to be investigated in Bangladesh and Nepal for the insecticides you see listed there. Next slide, please. Basil are going to be studies in Laos and Cambodia on Papyrifos and cypermethrin. Next slide, please. Dragon fruit and rice will be studied in Vietnam and Cambodia. Next slide, please. So what we're going to be doing for the initial phase of this test are be conducting decline studies using multiple combinations of these pesticides as much as we can. However, we do need to be aware of the possibility that there might be physical and chemical compatibility issues for mixing some of these test substances in the field. And there are also some potential interferences as far as analysis. This depends on both the active ingredients involved and also the level of sophistication of the analytical equipment that is going to be involved in the analysis. So I've had some initial discussions with Malaysia, and they're going to they have agreed to try to do some of the physical chemical compatibility testing in the field. And I've also gotten some good guidance from several of our chemists, Dr. Wu from Singapore, Dr. Wayne Jiang from Michigan State, and others have provided some interesting guidance in that respect. Next slide, please. So again, the questions that we need to answer are, can we mix these pesticides together? Are there issues with physical chemical compatibility? Will we end up forming a precipitate, some kind of chemical exothermic reaction, phytotoxicity? So these issues will have to be investigated. Next slide, please. And then we'll also need to know from all the countries, considering the active ingredients that you're going to have to be analyzing, can you analyze for these conventional pesticides within a single sample? In other words, you'd have to be able to do them in a sample where all of these are existing already within the sample. If not, we have to make some other considerations on how we might have to divide some of the active ingredients when we do the field studies. So these will be based on largely on the type of equipment that you have. And this is just a listing of a few potential types of equipment that we might be involving. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of the type of activities and the countries that are going to be involved. So we do have, as Catalina mentioned, countries that were previously involved in some of the STDF work that we did on generating MRLs. So we're benefiting greatly from their experience. And for example, Thailand and Singapore are going to be involved in being able to train some of the other countries in the group laboratory training. and also to follow up with some of the one-on-one training. Malaysia will be hosting a group field training. And so this is going to be in a sort of train-the-trainer type cooperative situation. And hopefully we can get over some of the initial questions and hurdles. And then also we have Dr. Wayne Jiang, who was involved also in the previous STDF project. So he's going to be the fallback person, so to speak. He has a great deal of experience in these types of analyses. And so if there are issues that cannot be resolved through the regional labs, Wayne will be available and come one-on-one for additional troubleshooting. All the countries will be involved in the residue mitigation studies. In addition, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Nepal, Sri Lanka will be involved in the biopesticide manufacturing and development. And Nepal will be the host for that event. All countries will be involved in the regulatory harmonization and then the final results meeting. Next slide, please. These are some potential dates that I've come up with as far as potential workshop dates. As we mentioned, we still do plan to hold a face-to-face inception workshop, and we're proposing June 25th, 26th, following up the next week, perhaps with the group lab training, and then either a little further down the line or maybe back-to-back with the lab training, we will hold the field group training, and that will be in Malaysia. Again, we've had some challenges with the group lab training. We originally envisioned holding that in Singapore, but because of some travel restrictions, our current plans are to be able to hold that in Bangkok as well. I think now I will switch off, and I think the presentation goes back to Catalina. Excuse me, to Martina.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for presenting this project overview. And I would like to remind the participants that if they have any questions or comments, they can start typing them in the chat box, and we can address them later, okay, as we move on. So as you are reflecting on the presentation of Michael, please share these comments or queries, questions that you may have in the chat box. Okay, so we will go back to them and we will address them later. So we can now move to the next session. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is going to be on the project's capacity development. So as you already know, because I think some of you have already talked to Michael and you are also familiar with the project, this project is going to be focusing on two types of capacity development. So the first part is technical knowledge and skills that are specific to the project objectives. And Michael actually very nicely summarized them in the matrix that he just shown. Again, if you have further questions, you can ask Michael afterwards. And then there is this functional or soft skills element, which we are introducing in this project. So what this means is basically knowledge, attitudes, and behavior that are needed to apply and coordinate the technical capacities in order to contribute to long-term development outcomes of this project more effectively. So we will be dealing with these two types of capacity development. Next slide, please. So while technical is clear to you, Michael mentioned already, but why are we including functional capacities? Why are they important for the achievement of these long-term outcomes of this project? So these are the questions that will be answered by Dr. Ravi Ketapal, the Executive Secretary of APARI. just to introduce Ravi, Ravi, before joining APARI, he worked as Regional Director and Regional Advisor on Strategic Science Partnership of the Center for Agriculture Bioscience International, CABI, South Asia office. And prior to this, he worked for the National Agricultural System in India for 3 decades. He was also a consultant for various projects supported by FAO, World Bank, and USDA. Catalina also mentioned some of these. And he also, especially she mentioned that he represented Asia as a developing country SPS expert in a working group at STDF. So I would like to now invite Ravi to deliver his presentation on the importance of functional capacities for this project. Thank you, Ravi, please.
Thank you, Martina. Before I start my presentation, I would like to especially welcome Catalina and all the delegates from Europe and from US. Good morning to them and good afternoon to all my Asian participants who are here. Now, Martina has given a brief background on what I'm going to present, and Michael has made an excellent presentation on the technical part of the project, which is going to be a key part of the whole project. We want to bring in some of the member countries of APARI in Asia Pacific. And APARI as such is fortunate to partner with Michael and then there's one Jason Sandel from USDA, who are actually the key global experts in the subject. What they are bringing is a core technical excellence in terms of MRL detection, residue monitoring plan, and the pesticides and promotion of biopesticide. What APARI is bringing in the picture in the project is, as mentioned briefly by Catalina also, we are bringing in the element of logistical implementation. We are bringing in the element of knowledge management and communication plan. And we are going to have a monitoring, evaluation, and a learning plan also, which will sum up all the activities and finally help us to do an impact pathway analysis of where we are actually reaching in the project. So what we have done in this project, I'm from a technical background, but now being in APARI, we look at things in a different way or in a more comprehensive way. And capacity building is the core of any development program. And here the focus of STDF itself is for SPS capacity building. And the focus in the project is on one of the aspects of STDF where we have a compliance to Codex Alimentarius Commission. What we have thought in APARI, after having worked a bit and still working with the tropical agriculture platform, next slide, please. Tropical agriculture platform of FAO. What we have seen is a new concept of capacity development for agriculture innovation system, which has an overarching impact, which has a cross-sectoral impact, and which we felt is very necessary to blend with the technical capacities which are being built in any discipline and can enhance the impact of the capacity which is built in terms of the output and outcome. So here, this tropical agriculture platform very briefly was established by a G20 initiative about 8 years back by FAO. And it is a multi-layer facilitation mechanism to improve efficiency and effectiveness of capacity development and also knowledge sharing for agriculture innovation system. And when we talk of agriculture innovation system, here I would like to say for most of you, like innovation, we have not to confuse with invention. Innovation is not just a research output, it is something more. The word innovation and invention, they overlap semantically if you look at, but they are completely different. And just a small example here I would like to give before I go ahead. Invention is like we say Alexander Graham Bell had invented telephone. The initial invention of telephone was done by Graham Bell. that is invention. When we got a cell phone, that was either invention or innovation. But now the smartphone we are having, that is a clear-cut case of innovation. So innovation is something we do for which adds a socio-economic value in the whole process or the product of whatever we do. And that is what we felt. There is a need of a functional capacity to enable the partners to do more and more innovation, either in the process they are following or in the products they are developing, which are both applicable in this project. Having said that, next please. Next slide. If you look at this, functional capacities, also called soft skills, they are so crucial for enabling the innovation. And this innovation, what FAO Tropical Agriculture Platform has taken up is because of the complexity in the stakeholders at multiple levels on multiple issues. Now it has been quite accepted that we have to have a system perspective. We just can't look at innovation at one corner in isolation by a given player. So if you look at the agriculture innovation system perspective, the PowerPoint here shows quite clearly we need input from so many partners. I'm not going to read this or explain this completely. We need inputs from the science actors, from the technology actors, from the private sector, from the policymakers, from the political system. And we need all this. Why? Just to bridge completely the output of research and the education system with the business and enterprises. And these bridging institutions are like the your extension and other contractual arrangements which we have. So it is quite a comprehensive, a bit complex system which we need to look at objectively to bring innovation, and to bring innovation at every step or holistically, we need functional capacities to be developed, and hence the need of the functional capacity to be blended with the technical capacity, which is a part of the project. Next. And when we talk of functional capacities, the focus in this capacity building is capacity to navigate complexity, capacity for collaboration, capacity for reflection and learning, and capacity to engage in strategic and political process. And what we need to keep in mind is this, functional capacity building, for which we have the modules developed by the Tropical Agriculture Platform as a common framework for capacity development. It not only builds capacity of an individual, but it also builds capacity of the organization and also capacity in the enabling environment or in the policy making. So it's quite a holistic framework for developing the capacity. Next. Next, please. So, and within this framework, there are other functional capacities which have been identified by APARI, which includes adaptability, interpersonal skills, organization skills, time management, and being tech savvy, technology savvy. All these things, what we feel are so crucial. Like if someone has a capacity for detection, a technical capacity, he should be knowing how to link that capacity to his functional capacity to carry it forward, to talk to an exporter, to bring the all the producers to see what he can do, how to negotiate for export, how to negotiate for import. So it's a holistic capacity of where one can enhance the importance of the technical capacity which one has learned in the project. Next. So this is in brief on like where APARI is technically chipping in the project through building on functional capacity, apart from our work on the overall project management and its implementation. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for this introduction of functional capacities. And again, I would like to stress that, for example, like under this work with FAO, we have found that functional capacities cannot be ignored, like when we are building technical capacities, because once you build these capacities, these soft skills, you can better apply the technical skills that you have learned under different training projects, etc. So I think that this blend is really important for the project, as Ravi rightly mentioned. But now I think we're going to pause here, and we are going to look at some of the feedback that we are getting from the participants. And as I'm going to go through the questions and comments, I would like you to put more comments and questions to Ravi also on this presentation before we move on to the next session. Yeah. So just going through the questions, I think there's one for Michael from Mr. Ulach's team. How many participants can attend each training and capacity development? Michael, would you like to answer this one?
Yes, I can answer that. Am I live?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, thank you for your question. So I think that there are two components actually to this question. One is about the group training, and the other is about in-country training. So in regard to the group training for both the field and the lab, we have planned on having 2 participants per country. Now, that is for the group training. Now, this is also going to be followed up with training in your country. Once you have started the experiments, we will follow up in your country with the representatives from the laboratories and field, and they will assist you in your country. And when that training is going on, it's up to you as far as the number of people you invite.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Another question is also for you, and it's, I think, from Mr. Tung from Vietnam. Is it possible to put Vietnam in the list to involve in the GLP capacity building and biopesticide manufacturing activities?
Well, I think we will have to re-examine the budget. For Vietnam, I think you're in pretty good shape as far as your GLP capacity. You did an excellent job in the field trials, and in the spectrum of countries that are involved in this study. As you're aware, you were involved in the last phase when we had the MRL project, and there are several countries here like Bangladesh, Cambodia. Some of them were not involved at all in that type of training, and also in addition, we have to consider the budget that we have, so we can take that into consideration. And I would say my first question back to you would be, would you put greater emphasis on the biopesticide manufacturing, on the group field training, or the group lab training? Mind you that the biopesticide manufacturing is only going to be one workshop. The group lab training and the group field training will also only have one workshop, but they will also have follow-up with in-country. So if you have an issue with the analysis, for example, in Vietnam, Wayne or somebody from Dr. Wu's lab or somebody from Prachati lab will come to assist you on the analysis. So there's greater opportunities for follow-up with the field and the lab as opposed to the biopesticide manufacturing. So take that into consideration.
Thank you, Michael. There's another question for you from Nepal, from Dr. Arial. He's saying that NARC has capacity to do experiments and trials, and they have also GCMS, and they can be a part of this project as well, but he's not sure how they can become an official partner.
Okay, I'd say I've put out a call for people who will be the lab research director, field research director, etc. Because right now, in Nepal, I do not have that list. So I would like to have information on that, and I'll confer with other people for their suggestions.
Okay, so further suggestions are needed here. Okay, we also have Sarah from CropLife Asia, who is asking how can CropLife Asia support this project, or how can they be involved in the project? There is a subcommittee for biopesticides.
Very good question. So, first of all, I want to recognize CropLife Asia for their assistance that they provided in Singapore by providing their facilities. That's where we held our project planning group meeting. In regard to biopesticides and conventional products, from the standpoint of conventional products, as I mentioned, I would like any information that's available on the conventional active ingredients, as far as decline studies that you have. That way we can sort of develop a scope or at least a rougher target of where we want to place the sampling intervals on our decline studies. And more specifically in biopesticides, I do plan on having an inception workshop, and as part of that inception workshop, I have invited both companies that are, I would say, traditional companies and some that are biopesticide companies, as well as CropLife to be part of that. And we're looking for input. So in other words, when you look at those crop pest combinations, we are very much seeking suggestions for biopesticide active ingredients that can fill that role. In addition, if there is any other type of funding, we would greatly appreciate any funding that could be supplied to perhaps have extra people attend meetings. For example, Vietnam has expressed interest in attending some of the other workshops. There have been questions about how many people can attend, and so potential for supplementing those activities would also be greatly appreciated. My apologies that I've forgotten the name of the individual. I believe it is maybe Garrett or Garnet, who's on a subcommittee with CropLife International, I think it is. I have been in contact with him regarding this project, but I would certainly welcome input from CropLife Asia as well.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Thank you. Well, we can have maybe further comments, but Mr. Ariel from Nepal, he added that he would like to discuss with you separately on that issue that you have already answered. And there is also a question from Singapore to Michael. So we talked about the issues with fipronil and metomil. Will the project still consider these two pesticides? Use of these two pesticides are highly restricted with MRLs at 0.01 ppm or even lower than 0.01 ppm for the case of fipronil. So he would like to have some clarification from you.
Okay, so I received feedback from Malaysia and Thailand that methomyl, for example, is no longer available within their country. We do not want to support in any way uses that are not legal within a country. So we would not follow up with those. These are some of the things we still need to iron out. Simply having a MRL of 0.01 is not a criteria for leaving it out of this study. If a product is banned within a country, that is a criteria for leaving it out of this work. So yes,
Okay.
I have received feedback for both methanyl and fipronil, and so those would probably not be. And now I just see an answer. Vietnam also
Yeah.
banned fipronil as well. Thank you for that input. Vietnam doesn't happen to be part of the chili study, but certainly Vietnam produces a lot of chili pepper, and so I believe they and probably every country that is involved in this project will benefit from that particular study. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank
Can I
you,
make a point,
Michael.
Martina?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, regarding Nepal, the question raised by Dr. Harihar Adhikari about the involvement of NARC officially. In fact, in the project preparation grant meeting, which we had in Singapore last January, that time NARC did not have a regular executive chairman or director, whatever they call. And so we wrote to the Ministry of Agriculture. And the Agriculture Secretary, Dr. Yubak G.C. Dhoj, from the Ministry of Agriculture, he participated, having a similar background on the biopesticides and all. And coincidentally, he has joined FAO last month as an agriculture officer in a P5 position. And I talked to him briefly, and he said he will be writing to the ministry to make NARC as an official partner, because the letter of consent which we got, which we submitted to SKDF, it was from the Ministry of Agriculture. But now Ministry of Agriculture is going to designate or nominate NARC to be an official member, and he need not worry much about officializing his role or presence in the project. We'll take care of it through him.
Okay. Thank you for this
Thank you.
clarification, Ravi.
Yeah.
There is also a question from Indonesia, Michael, that they would like to be involved in the biopesticide capacity building. How can they do that?
Okay, I have to go back and look at the list. I think you are in some sense. Let me get back to that particular page. Okay, so as far as the capacity building, if you're talking about the GLP capacity building, I do have Indonesia listed, and that's going to be Indonesia from the field aspect. Indonesia is very well equipped to do the lab aspect. I have no concern over Indonesia's ability to do the lab aspect. So Indonesia would not be involved in the group lab training. However, they will be involved in the group field training. In addition, Indonesia is also checked for involvement in the biopesticide manufacturing and development. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
You
Thank
said
you, Michael.
biopesticide capacity, so I think that refers to the biopesticide manufacturing and development.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And there's just one more question that just came on farmer education that was in your PowerPoint presentation. So how does project organize this farmer education?
Okay, that component has not been worked out. We definitely do need to develop that, and that's an important point of discussion which will be at the inception workshop. We do have two farmers involved in this project thus far. We have from Sri Lanka, we have Jagat, who's a strawberry and vegetable producer. And then we also have Amy Nguyen, she's based in the United States. She's an importer of dragon fruit. So both of these are involved in export and import respectively. And so their input on how to make this information available to fellow growers and importer and exporters is going to be critical, because we need them to help us develop a system and a pull through for this technology.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. There's also another actually comment from Mr. Ullah. Some pesticides are banned in our country, that is Bangladesh, I assume, but a few unscrupulous people uses these banned pesticides anyway. And in this context, what can we do? Because we notified already about this. So we promote biopesticides, but we badly need GLP and analytical training.
Yeah. So you will be involved in all of the aspects. I believe you're representing Bangladesh. And so Bangladesh will be involved in the GLP capacity building from both the lab and the field aspects. They will be involved in the residue mitigation studies. They will be involved in the biopesticide manufacturing and development. As far as unscrupulous people using banned pesticides, this project will not solve that. And that is a very serious issue. I highly respect the need for that type of work, but realistically, I'm not going to promise something that I don't think is a reasonable achievement within the scope of this project. We can help people that are willing to follow the law. We can't help people that are not willing to follow the law. And then I see another follow-up from Catalina regarding next steps. Really, the most immediate next step before the inception workshop is development of these teams. So in one of the slides, I mentioned people in specific roles, and we need to know who the individuals are who are going to be in those roles, especially from the newer countries. As I mentioned, we need the names, organizations, and emails of people that are going to be involved in doing this from both the field aspects, the lab aspect, and quality assurance and efficacy. I will be following up with tables for people to fill in with the names, organization, and emails of the people that are going to be playing these roles. And that's the most immediate step. The secondary step is confirmation of what is and what is not banned within your country, and the use rates and the labels and use rates within your country, so that we are following what is on the label and what is legal within your country.
Yeah, to add to what Michael has said, we in the June workshop, inception workshop, which will be face-to-face, there we are going to have a detailed work plan, which will be shared with all. And there will be probably, when you have a quick bilateral discussions or side meetings and all, we'll look at the nitty-gritty of the technicalities of the project with the individual partner. But in the meantime, what we are going to do is we are going to make a clear calendar of the activities for the year. And unfortunately, coronavirus has limited travel at certain part of Asia. So with Michael, we are discussing with partners. We'll get back to you where it is easy to have the programs where some can move, some cannot move. Maybe we have to change the venues. There are a lot of things which are slightly in the cloud right now, but hopefully it will be settled. And with it, from now up to June, we'll be working on these things and looking at how the situation is improving in the region. And maybe in a month or two, we'll be more sure to give you a more clear cut calendar of the activities. And also, soon we'll be getting back to you for the centers, especially where some equipments have to be purchased or some resources are required. So we may enter into agreement as per APARI norms for disbursement of fund and all. So those things will be the next step, I believe, from now up to the inception workshop, and we'll be in touch with all the partners. But we also request you, whatever you have in mind pertaining to your role, what we are not covering, please get back to us, write to us, call us. You're free to do so, and we hope to have a very active interaction to really make this project a good success.
Okay, one last question, and then we really need to move forward because I do want to talk about the work plan later as well, and we need to move forward on this teleconference. About the question about using biochemical type products, plant and animal origin extracts versus microbials. We might consider those. However, we also have to make sure that if we're using those products, that's why it's easier to focus on. Okay, so I think we really need to move along the presentation. Thank you. So, Martina, you were gonna, I think, have the next slide.
Yes, it's just another question just came in. I don't know if you would like to talk about it. Use of bee propolis in pest control, is that possible? It came from Mr. Adhikari. Maybe this is just the last question, and then we can come back to more questions after the last presentation.
I'll discuss that with him privately. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for all these questions, and also, of course, to the speakers. And we are going to be moving on to the next session on the results of the pre-workshop survey. And the speakers will be myself and Michael again, but just a little bit about myself because I did not really introduce myself in more detail. I have been with APARI for the past 4 years or 5 years almost. And I've been working on knowledge management, capacity development, South-South cooperation, and project management with a focus on agriculture and rural development for the past 18 years. And before joining APARI, I was with IFAD in Italy for 12 years, and then UN ESCAB in Indonesia for 3 years. And I also worked with the European Union on some short-term consultancies. So this is just a little background about myself, so you know who I am. And now back to the subject. So 3 weeks ago, we launched a survey where we were trying to find out what are the major capacity gaps that you are experiencing. And this is in regards to technical capacities as well as functional capacities. We had 17 responses. And the countries that participated in the survey were Cambodia, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Nepal, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. So what we're going to do in the next presentation, we are going to show you the results of the technical part. So I would like to invite Michael again to share these results, and then I will follow with the functional ones. So Michael, and next slide, please.
Yes, thank you. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these questions. I'm just showing you what the questions were for those of you who might not have been involved in the survey. but they mainly focused on GLP capacity, both in the field and the laboratory. And then next slide, please. And then in addition, some questions specifically pertaining to biopesticides. Next slide, please. All right, so then, well, what were the results of this pre-workshop survey? So first of all, the number of technical skills needing capacity building was different in those that were previously involved in the first STDF project versus the new participants. We're very happy to see this because this is what we would expect. In other words, the people that were involved in the first STDF project felt that they had more skill, a greater set of skills, and those were connected to those that we trained them in the first STDF project. And so there were 4 skills on average needed for participants that were involved in the first STDF project, whereas for new participants, there was an average of 8 skills. Next slide, please. So as far as the top skills, as far as capacity building, the ones that were primarily from new countries were the ability to follow GLP studies, protocols, and SOPs, ability to follow and complete a field GLP notebook, how to set up field plots and sprayer calibration, ability to validate an analytical method and sample analysis. And those were the top ones from primarily the new participants. Next slide, please. These were the top results from both the new and experienced participants. Knowledge of biopesticide use, experience in evaluating biopesticides, and knowledge about biopesticide manufacturing. And this makes sense because, as I mentioned earlier, the experienced countries already had the GLP knowledge and the GLP training, and so the one that was more uniform in need was about the biopesticide component. Next, please. So then this is my own, also my personal take. The biggest surprise of something that was not listed was the ability to audit a GLP study. From a trainer's perspective, looking back on the previous STDF project, everybody did a great job, but out of all the different skill sets, comparing field skills, analytical skills, and quality assurance remained as the greater need. There was also an additional capacity requested about key consideration in pesticide selection to suit the user under high-density indoor farming. And so that's not a specific goal of this project, but I would be willing to follow up with the requester of that particular capacity and provide some training when I am in their country. And I think the next slide maybe is for Martina.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So on functional capacities, these are the areas that we assessed. I'm not going to go through details since you have seen the survey, you have contributed, but I'm going to share with you the findings. So next slide, please. Okay, so basically what we found was that 24 to 35% of all respondents indicated poor or very poor skills or capacities in these 4 areas that you can see in the first column. So this is understanding and solving problems in the field and analytical projects, awareness of opportunities for policy change in JMPR, CCPR, and Codex, then influence of decision-making processes in domestic pesticide uses related to biopesticide regulations, and knowing how to engage farmers to impact pesticide use. Now, we have tried to cluster some of these, actually all 4 of these, according to the framework that Ravi presented. So in the right column, you can see the areas where we are going to try to develop your capacities in. And this is on problem solving in the context of complexity, engagement in policy dialogue, and interpersonal skills. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that there have been also some other suggested areas, but actually some of these have already been reflected in those 4 previously mentioned, like, for example, motivating farmers to use biopesticides, strengthening the capacity of farmer groups. So this could be part of the development of interpersonal skills, negotiations, etc. So we are going to discuss internally how we can best develop these skills to address your needs in these areas. Next slide, please. Now, how are we going to integrate these functional capacities in this technical program? So these are the 3 areas that you can see. We will be adding 1 day to the main workshops. 1 day already will be added probably to the inception workshop. Again, we will be discussing with Michael how best to do this and what would be the priority topic that you would like to explore in terms of functional capacities in the context of this technical project. We are planning to do more webinars. As Ravi mentioned, and also myself earlier, APARI is a regional organization, so we have over 85 members, and we have been facilitating knowledge exchange among different experts on various development topics. So basically, APARI is in a good position to facilitate these interactions also in the context of this project. And we would like to actually ask you some ideas that you might have on the topics you want to explore, the type of experts that you would like to see in webinars in order to learn from, whether international, national, or like even from the region. So this is something that we are going to be seeking your inputs in terms of how we can bring these webinars to you, because it's actually very easy to organize. You know, we can have a smooth process discussing really substantive topics of your need and interest. And then integration with technical training. So the idea is also to bring some knowledge management techniques that are part of this framework that, again, Ravi mentioned, the TAP framework, in order to facilitate discussion, critical thinking about the project, but also seeing the whole outcomes of this project very holistically in terms of how it's affecting the whole agriculture innovation system. So this is what we mean by this integration. So we will be working closely with Michael in order to develop the agenda and flow of these technical events in order to really develop also these functional capacities. Okay, and next slide, please. I think this is participants' feedback again. So we would like to ask you if you have any questions or comments on these results, or maybe even if there are any other capacities that are really important for the delivery of this project outcomes but have not been mentioned so far. Please turn off your mics. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So please use the chat box to state your questions. Any clarifications that you might seek. And I think just to speed up a little bit, because we are running late, I think we should go to the next session. Michael, if you agree, Ravi, on the way forward. And then in the meantime, the participants can still ask about this survey in case they have any questions. But I think it's good that we move on.
Very good. Next slide, please. Right, so next we're going to be talking about the proposed work plan. As was mentioned, there have been challenges due to the coronavirus, but we are trying to see how we can overcome those and adjust the work plan accordingly. So next slide, please. Yes, good. All right. So the first activity is going to be the inception workshop. And now we have moved it from what was supposed to be today till roughly June or so. We have held also the first steering committee meeting. Reports, you guys don't want to hear about that. That's our responsibility, but we will be submitting reports to STDF on the activity within the first 6 months. Next slide, please. As far as specific activities now, as far as the follow-up and oversight for field and laboratory activities, this is going to be conducted by myself in combination with Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand. There will be group training and also the work itself, and this will be followed from starting roughly 2021 through early 2022. We'll be generating the decline data depending on where you are within the development of GLP, your ability to do GLP residue trials. That will dictate whether or not you're ready to start. And then also following up after that, we will be developing the efficacy data to correspond to the biopesticide decline, the conventional product decline data. Next slide, please. Okay, so one particular thing in regard to this, in this part of the timeline, is the type of crop you're involved in. So we assume that for crops like chili, pepper, greens, and basil, you pretty much grow those all year round. And we assume that that's not going to be an issue as far as the timing of the project. However, for other projects such as dragon fruit or rice, please let us know what the seasonality of those crops are in the countries that are involved in the dragon fruit and rice work, so that we can consider that in our work plan. So that the dragon fruit would be in regard to Vietnam, and then the rice project in regard to Cambodia. If there somehow are some seasonal restrictions to the chili, greens, or basil, let me know as well. Next slide, please. Okay. I also mentioned we're going to be having government scientists that will be trained in the capacity to efficiently manufacture native microorganisms for use as biopesticides. And this workshop will be conducted by Dr. Stefan Juronsky, who's a retired USDA microbiologist who has a lot of experience both in USDA and in industry, especially with metarhizium in Bavaria. And this will be conducted late 2021 or early 2022. Next slide, please. Next event will be the regulatory cooperation harmonization. This will be led by Dr. Thomas Jackal of GIZ. And this will be in 2021, 2022. Next slide, please. And then early 2022 or late 2023, through that period, we will have our final meeting to discuss the results, and then the dissemination and extension type knowledge management program to disseminate the results and promote adoption of the technologies that we find to be appropriate. So at this time, maybe we can take a little time for feedback on the work plan. Any questions about the work plan? And thank you for Vietnam for your feedback that dragon fruit and rice can be year-round in Vietnam.
Thank you, Michael. So if there are any comments, please share them now. Maybe the next slide, please. There are some discussion points, but I'm not sure whether we have time to go through them. Next one, please. So in our communication, actually Michael's communication before the webinar, there have been some discussion points outlined in this communication. So identification of team members. I think some of these have already been covered by Michael during this webinar. The second one is analytical equipment that you plan to use for analysis, potential analytical interferences, physical compatibility testing, potential impact of cropping season on project timelines, any major conflicts in holding the inception workshop late June, and also capacity development activities in early July. And then also how the development of functional capacities in addition to the technical ones can help you achieve the project outcomes in the long run. So these are just some ideas from you. How best can women be integrated into project activities? Because of course we should not ignore the gender element here. So, and also another point which I think I have asked during my presentation was on webinars. How best we can utilize this platform in order for you to benefit from knowledge sharing and learning as much as possible through this project. So, Michael, how would you like to proceed on these discussion points?
Well, first of all, I want to again thank Catalina for her question about what the first activities we would want to try to accomplish between now and the time we have the next meeting in June. And this is pretty much a majority of what we would like to accomplish. I've listed them through the presentation. I will send a copy of this presentation to everybody who is on the email list. And if you know somebody else that needs to be copied, please let me know who that is, because we want to be able to keep a nice list of those people who are involved in this project or interested in the project. But now I guess I will open up the floor for any questions about or any discussions that people would like to start regarding these particular points. Oh, and thank you for Cambodia. Thank you for your comments about rice starting May to February. Is that the planting time or is that the harvest season? So I guess you can follow up in the chat box for that. But if anybody would like to bring up any of the discussion points here, any questions about the discussion points, you can please enter it in the chat box, or you can follow up with me or anybody on the team for discussion of these questions later on. I will be sending out, as I mentioned, an email with a table for you to fill in concerning your team members, questions, additional questions about your analytical equipment, and so on. so that we can try to build a firmer plan before our next meeting.
Yeah, I wonder, Michael.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael. I was just wondering whether there would be a possibility to have some guided discussions on some of these issues. You know, there's a lot of tools that we could possibly use for facilitated discussions, where participants can discuss through chat, basically on different issues. So maybe we could take even one or two of these discussion points for each discussion separately. What do you think? So that we can ensure the participation of everybody. And let's say we can set it up for 1 week, so people can come in and comment and contribute ideas or issues that they are facing at their pace. So it doesn't have to be like happening at the same time, but we can have it running for, like, let's say a week, and we could get participants' inputs into that. It's just an idea that just came to my mind.
Yeah. So I think the point is to maybe follow up with any questions that you have, and then maybe what I'll do is to sort of follow up on what you're suggesting, Martina. Set up another potential list of dates and see when people are available, and set up another conference like this to go through other people's questions and their answers, so that we can go over them as a group. All right. So
there are some questions coming.
Feedback. So yes, planting time is May to November in rainy season. November to February for dry season. Okay. Question: what is the engagement with the commercial side of the industry? Okay, so I have been in communication through CropLife and CropLife Asia. As a matter of fact, I provided a more condensed version of this presentation at the last ASEAN Export Working Group meeting in Myanmar, which was just a couple of weeks ago. And I certainly welcome engagement with industry. I will be seeking out participation and cooperation in the sense of any data you might have regarding decline studies, analytical standards, and field test substance. I've also had some roundtable discussions in the U.S. With CropLife America, and so there have been some efforts. There certainly does need to be more engagement with commercial side of the industry, and I welcome your participation.
Okay.
And
are there any other questions?
There will also be invitations to the Inception workshop in June for people from industry, both from the standpoint of biopesticide industry and the manufacturers of commercial conventional products.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. I think Cambodia has shared their team members. There are also some other comments from Bangladesh. Around 300 million MT of rice produces annually in Bangladesh. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions regarding these discussion points? Okay.
I just like to make a comment.
Yeah.
So I saw that comment there about rice production in Bangladesh. I would say I think every country involved in this project has rice production. They probably all have chili pepper production, and so I focused the countries or the projects and countries based on where they indicated their most serious needs are for residue issues in exports. But I think this comment about rice production in Bangladesh indicates that the results of this project, even though they may be conducted in Cambodia, I know several other countries that have issues with tricyclazole on rice. And so I expect many countries, if not all countries, will benefit from that information. And vice versa. In other words, I think other countries will also benefit from the chili pepper, the basil, and what have you. We can't conduct every study in every country, but I think the studies are applicable to almost every country within the region.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I think there are no other comments coming, unless there are any burning issues. Okay, if not, then maybe we can go to the wrap up. Yeah, next slide, which is.
Okay, so as far as dissemination of knowledge, pretty soon you're also going to be receiving an email to join our Facebook page. I haven't really publicized this very much because I was awaiting STDF's new logo. And now that we have received that, we will start to kind of reactivate that effort. And so the picture you see there, that's a picture of some of the attendees at the headquarters of CropLife Asia in Singapore, where we held our project planning grant meeting. And then the picture below that, believe it or not, that's a type of basil that's grown widely in Thailand, but that's growing in my garden. All right, so Ravi, you want to do the final wrap up?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Martina. Before I ask Martina to offer a formal vote of thanks, I would like to just say a few words. This has been a very excellent exercise that we are having this kind of an interaction or a workshop online. And online, of course, I mean, we are only speaking and all of you are only writing. So that is something which is probably we will overcome when we actually meet in the inception workshop face-to-face, where you'll be speaking also, and we may be writing more. So I think talking bilateral gives a different satisfaction than only unilateral. But we are very grateful to all of you who have given all their comments, who spent their time to be there on the. Now we have gone through. Switch off your microphone, anyone? Okay. We have gone through with the big, nice background about the project from Michael, about the partners from Martina, the results of the workshop, pre-workshop survey, both for technical and functional capacity, and the need for blending the board, and I'm not going to go into details of what has been presented. What actually is crucial now is to how not only we perform, but how we capture our performance in a way that we bring it on the ground, the output, with the support of GIZ, with the support of CropLife Asia, and with the support of FAO. And all these organizations, I'm very happy to say, even on behalf of Michael, have very actively contributed. And FAO, of course, GIZ has a big role to play in the biopesticide regulatory harmonization. But FAO has committed to come forward in our steering committee meeting, which we had about a week back. And this is a good sign. And FAO, we are going to have a meeting day after to talk further, like how we can look at some of the intermediate outputs in the ongoing IPM kind of a work which FAO is doing, and how we can synergize to have a much better output in the region. So we are lucky to have, as a party, I would say we are very lucky to have Michael and Jason from Rutgers University, IR4, and from USDA. And we are lucky to have a good team within a party with Martina as a knowledge management coordinator who's working on functional capacity, and also Dr. Nora Omar, who is our project manager and who actually is a specialist in monitoring and evaluation. In the last 3 days, she has been helping Michael and me to discuss more on how we can capture the points and all. To give you a look at Nora, or she's sitting at one corner, we are sharing one computer. So she is a policy coordinator of APARI, and she will be involved in a different way, silently behind the scene, but she'll be monitoring what we are doing. So this is very important, someone who monitors and captures all our activity. And that my request to all of you is to really be interactive and be communicative. We have all the means of communication. Michael also now going global with Facebook, but we have WhatsApp, we have our emails, our Skype, our Blue Jeans. Let us interact more in the regular way so that we keep the ball rolling because STDF of WTO is one of the most beautiful unit I have seen or I have been associated briefly with, where you just have a bunch of 6 people and doing a job which I think in normal course is done by maybe 20, 25 people. It's an organization which is very meaningful, which really promotes SPS capacity building, and we are lucky to be having a project being granted from there. So with these few words, I will look forward for more active interaction and of course collaboration with the passage of time. And I will now leave it on Martina to finally wind it up. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Ravi. Okay, so now the webinar is over, and I would like to thank again all the participants who have found time to participate in this webinar. I would like to thank our speakers, Catalina, Ravi, and Michael, for very interesting presentations and interventions, also answering your questions and comments that you might have. And we will be in touch with you. We will be interacting regularly, and I'm very grateful that we had this formal introduction already. And I'm really looking forward to working with you on behalf of APARI on this project and seeing you all at the inception meeting. So thank you again and keep in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thanks, Martina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.